Hello there, people of the internet. I think that this is going to be a rather fun video just because I myself am not entirely sure what to expect in terms of power, because I've never put these beside one another the way that I'm about to. So back in the days of black powder, ammunition was large. Like very, very large. Like way larger than what your average calibers are going to be today. Back then, having something 50 caliber or above was pretty common practice, and your bullets would be like 300 grain plus. And the reason for that is because black powder, the way that it burns and its limitations, it cannot propel projectiles like at any significant speeds beyond, say, 1,800 feet per second. There is some instances where you might get 1,900 feet per second. Very rarely will you see 2,000 feet per second. But with our smokeless powder in our modern day era, I say modern day, smokeless powder was technically adopted by mass military service by the French in 1886. With the adoption of smokeless powder, as mankind started to progress away from black powder, we started using smaller, lighter weight bullets that go at like way faster velocities than the black powder could ever push them at. So we went from these right here. This is a 4570 round with a 425 grain bullet. It's a huge, huge piece of lead that just does not move all that rapidly downrange. If I had to make a bet, I'd say this probably moves about 1,700 feet per second from a full-length trapdoor Springfield. But smokeless powder has given us the opportunity to be able to have smaller, lighter weight bullets that move much faster. They're much more capable at hitting at longer distances. 4570, you try shooting at a distance and you're going to have to like rainbow your cartridge, rainbow your round down onto your target, versus something like a modern 7.62 NATO round. These are very capable out to like 800 plus yards if you know what you're doing with them. I don't know what I'm doing with them. I could never shoot beyond like 300 yards, even with like the best of rifles. I'm just not that great of a shot. But touching out distances like that with something like your old school black powder rounds, it's just extremely, extremely difficult. On top of that, your black powder cartridge is much heavier than your smaller cartridges. Like this 4570 425 grain bullet with 70 grains of black powder behind it, this weight compared to the weight of our 7.62 NATO, there's a significant difference. Carrying any real load of 4570, like any real loadout, is just not something that is going to be viable. Now, within distances that are black powder capable, your 4570 might actually do more damage on target, depending on the target, than your like 7.62 NATO full metal jacket. Now, of course, bullet style, like there's so many different kinds of bullet types and powder types and so many different things out there that would dictate how much energy is put on target. But for the most part, if somebody's rocking 7.62 NATO, I think that they only make full metal jackets for that, just because that is the military standard versus the military standard back when black powder was a thing, which was just a big old lead bullet. Lead deforms whenever it hits something, so it sticks a lot of energy onto that target, versus something like a full metal jacket. This might have more energy going down range than your 4570, especially at like distance. But the odds of a full metal jacket 7.62 NATO passing through a soft target without putting much damage onto it, like without imparting much energy onto that target, is quite large versus something like a 4570. So 4570, those old school black powder guns, they definitely do their damage. They just have their limitations. Now, that being said, I have some of these right here. These are 150 grain 308s, but they're loaded behind, if memory serves me, 57 grains of corned black powder. Corned black powder is not quite as powerful as your commercial grade, pucked grade powder. So by weight, I think it comes out to like 45 grains of powder versus the by volume of 57. It's just going to be a little bit less powerful. But if we were to compress gunpowder or use commercial grade stuff or something like that, we might get a little bit more power out of these, but it's not going to be very much. So the 4570, the reason why these were so big was because of that lack of velocity going downrange. The only way to get more energy onto your target was to have a bigger bullet, because you can't get faster because of the limitations of the powder, so you gotta get bigger. So if we were to look into black powder cartridges, I mean, the British kind of did this right at the cusp of smokeless powder. If we were to look into black powder cartridges and adopt smaller bore cartridges, like say your 150 grain, they would still be limited to those velocities. Like our 30 caliber 150 grain over 57 grains of black powder, this is not a powerful cartridge. I mean, I wouldn't want to get hit by it by any means, but your larger 4570 is just going to be a more potent option. Let me go ahead and send some lead downrange, because I have the guns here to do it. First thing we're gonna do, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my earmuffs on here. Let's go ahead and fire a couple rounds of smokeless 7.62 NATO. This is the modern stuff. Since these are moving at significantly higher velocities than black powder could ever produce, just because of the pressures black powder burns at and the rates it burns at and whatnot. These are just far more efficient. And since they're far more efficient, they have quite a deal bit more power going downrange. I have a steel silhouette down there. I'm just gonna go ahead and shoot it. These are lead core rounds. I'm not expecting them to do very much. All right, yeah, that hit it. It also has quite a bit of recoil behind it. Like, these are full powered rounds. That is definitely for sure. Okay, well, we smacked our steel down there. So, with smokeless powder, you know, everything's fine and dandy. You get plenty of power downrange. You got your Spitzer bullets. You got your relatively lightweight ammunition. You can hit things at long distances, you know, fine and good and dandy. But let's say something happens. I don't know. The world ends. You don't have any gunpowder anymore. You can't make your reloads. So you got to make your own gunpowder. You make yourself some black powder. What would be the best option? Going with your old school black powder guns? Maybe something in 4570, or going with your newer rifles. I say newer despite the fact that it's an older design. Maybe you have some sort of other 7.62 NATO rifle. Going with a newer firearm, newer style design, with that lighter weight bullet, smaller charge, smaller cartridge. It's just not going to have as much power going downrange. I think I'd probably go with the older styles of firearms here. Ah, my steel dumped down. I gotta go set that back up. So that's a good bit of power going downrange. That's not an insignificant force. I'd say that's relatively on par with like a shotgun slug. Maybe not quite that, but pretty gosh darn close. Alright, I won't lie, that was kind of fun. I liked smacking that steel with that 4570. I'm gonna go ahead and do that again, just because that was enjoyable. 425 grain bullet behind 70 grains of black powder. Let's set that right there. Perfect. And let's send another one of these downrange at our steel. My steel's just kind of sitting there. It doesn't have anything holding it up. That's probably why it fell down. Oh, I'm gonna have to go set that back up. All right, so our rounds are powerful enough to knock over that steel. 425 grain bullet at, I don't know, if I had to make a bet, 1,700 feet per second, somewhere around there. That's gonna be my point of contention. All right, now things go terribly wrong, and you have to load modern ammo with black powder. These just don't have the mass or the velocity to have much energy going downrange. I don't know how much energy these have. I'm sure somebody can calculate down below. 150 grain bullet moving at, I don't know, we'll call this 1,700 feet per second as well. It's only behind 57 grains of powder. If you had a larger cartridge, like say 300 Win Mag or something like that, you might get a little bit more velocity. But as you add gunpowder to your cartridges, once you get above like 50 grains, you start getting some pretty significant diminishing returns. Like an extra 50% charge might get you another 100, 150 feet per second. That is more energy onto your target, but I don't know. I would rather practice powder conservation in that particular case. And this is really not that much powder that's going into these. The extractor on this particular rifle has definitely seen better days. What are we stuck on here? There's nothing in that chamber, right? All right, there we go. So this is now black powder 308. 150 grain bullet behind 57 grains of powder. I gotta adjust my elevation so I can hit my target here. Wow, the recoil on that is pathetically small. Well, we hit our steel. I heard a clank, but man, it didn't really do much of anything to that steel down there. I'll tell you what, it's definitely a plinker load. Maybe I'll fill up like a gallon jug of water and hit it with the 4570 in this thing, and we'll see what kind of energy transfer we get. Yeah, I mean, compare the recoil of this to that 4570, and man, it's just a night and day difference, dude. Yeah, I got a couple of these rounds. Let's set another. Why not? This honestly, with how the recoil of this feels, it feels like I'm firing a 223 from a heavy rifle. The big fireball and whatnot that comes out of this thing's pretty cool, though. Well, we're smacking our target over and over and over. The 4570 was enough to knock it down, though. This isn't even moving it. All right, let me wander over to the house. I'll grab some water jugs, and we will send some lead from the 4570 and the 308 black powder and see what the differences are. The 308 black powder, definitely not something that I would want to rely on. It just doesn't have the energy. All right, so now I've got a couple of water jugs out there. I'm gonna go ahead and like not shoot that one on the ground. I'm gonna put it up on the stand so we get like as good of a view as possible on it. This right here, these 308 rounds with black powder behind them, 150 grain, they got a flat nose on them. These are actually 30-30 bullets that I have loaded into these. But this flat nose on it should equate to like as much energy transfer onto target as possible in comparison to something like a full metal jacket. This should like give us our best possible results. If I had a full metal jacket in this thing, we might not get as much energy transfer. But that being said, we're probably not going to get much energy transfer from these bullets. So I'm going to go ahead and just send a round right there into that water jug. And I'm very doubtful that it'll be that impressive. Yeah, the water jug didn't even go anywhere. We poked a hole in it, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean 150 grains at what, 1,700, maybe 1,600 feet per second. Not very sporadic. Now let's hit it with a 4570 with 70 grains of black powder behind it and a 425 grain bullet. Same exact test. I have our water jug right now. Open this bad boy up, load us a 4570 round. This is a big ol' honking piece of lead. I'm willing to bet that these are going to be about the same velocities, but this heavier bullet should give us some much more impressive results. All right, here we go. Hopefully I hit the thing at this distance. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's much better. All right, let me go grab that. All right, 4570 water jug. Definitely had more energy transfer than our 308 black powder water jug. So there you go. Now you guys know why they used these really large, heavy bullets during the times of black powder, even though smaller bullets would have been a good option for carrying around and whatnot. There's just not enough oomph behind them whenever they are being faced with black powder. Alright folks, thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. I got a mess here to clean up. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode. I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.